live. Hey, how the heck are you? Well, that's a pretty crazy question, right? Because you can't actually answer that. Richard Cameron here. You know that because you're on this video. And I am, that title, or maybe it came up in your site, I don't know, all about, hey, how to piss off most people, right? Pretty simple, pretty easy to do these days. You know, in this day and age, you have a lot of folks that are forming into what I call the non-critical thinking tribes, the tribes are just wandering around in reaction and fear. A lot of it has been really induced by folks that really know what they're doing, how to manipulate the crowds and the masses of people through messages of mediocrity and a little bit of deception and things. And it's on all sides. Don't get me wrong. It's on left and right and center. It's all over the doggone place. But a lot of it has to do with critical thinking. And over the last, 5 weeks, 6 weeks or so, I put together a list of 20 or 21 observations, things that I'd learned or maybe had confirmed about humanity during this last 16 or 17 months and the like. But I'm going to really preface this with this. Look, I forget who said this. Might have been Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know. Doesn't matter who. But it was brilliant, right? So right today, there are things that we know, right? That you know individually, I know individually, that we know. There's many, many, many more things that we think we know. And then there is an infinite number of things that we don't know. Okay? In fact, we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of folks that are running around talking and stuff, they don't know what they don't know, and things change, and all this sort of stuff goes on, right? And you can point to it, and a lot of it isn't what I'd call malfeasant. It's not ill-meaning. It's just action and things that people took thinking that they were doing the right thing. I've been around a long enough time. In these, how old am I now? 68 years. And, listen, I went off to college and the Vietnam War was going on. And, you saw a lot of things, and I don't know if you've ever followed it, but the thing that got America in the Vietnam War was all staged by the American government, right? The Gulf of Tonkin incident and Lyndon Baines Johnson and the nonsense that was going on because France wanted out and the Americans said we want to get in, the domino theory and all this stuff, and we killed thousands and thousands and thousands of young men and women on both sides, right? And American and the Viet Cong and whoever else was involved. I know a lot of Canadians went, and it just went on because there was a narrative that was set up saying we have to do this, right? But it was all staged and put together by the government. If you don't believe me, that's your fault, right? Because you can go study it. You can go see it. See, the same thing as we saw a lot of ill effects. This is this whole thing about people want immediate cause and effect. Hey, I took a vaccine, I'm okay, right? And all that sort of thing. And I look back at a lot of things through time that just took time, right? That took time. We know that with cancers, right? That it's a lot of cumulative effects that suddenly, boy, there's problems. So I'm not saying the vaccine causes cancer. I'm just saying that that's a point of relevance for you. And again, coming back to Vietnam, we know that the defoliating agent that they were using that was perfectly safe for human beings and stuff being sprayed on the jungles to get rid of all the leaves and stuff called Agent Orange ended up causing a lot of problems for a lot of people down a few years down the road, right? That's kind of interesting, isn't it? But that's what's gone on. You've seen it with a lot of other things, right? Asbestos, mercury, PCPs, persistent organic chemicals, all these sorts of things that have really created issues and problems for the human condition. But oh my God, don't talk about it, right? Don't bring up the truth. Don't bring up what's really real. Don't look at things a frame of reference, The all-knowing, all-powerful gods of science and medicine, they only have the truth, right? Only they know the truth, and everything else that people are talking about is not true, even though it may be coming from very trusted, informed sources. No, don't talk about that because it's not there. So, and then you create these tribes, right? And so of my 21 points, I'm just going to tell you 2 of them right now. Things that number 1 on this is most people would rather be in the majority than be right. I don't mean left, right, like Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, right? I mean right as in correct, right? Most people would rather be in the majority than be right. And so it's sort of like this: don't talk to me, I don't want to hear it, that sort of thing, right? It's not It's just the case, right? It's the human condition. And if you can message around that, then you get a great sway of people moving a particular way, regardless if the outcomes are correct or not. People just want to be in the majority, not necessarily right. Right? And another part I put in there that dovetails with that is that the fear of death is the fear of death is only rival, but it has a rival, a very strong rival, and that's the fear of social disapproval. In fact, social disapproval might be even stronger than the fear of death. Boy, you see that right now. It's the low-status human beings running around and stuff that way and staring at you. Where's your mask? What's going on? How dare you? You know, all these sort of things. I've seen it like, I don't know. I bet you 20% of the population have revealed themselves as being authoritarianism. And the extreme of those are the folks that maybe, you know, are the meek guy sitting in the corner or gal sitting in the corner doing it, and then they go home and they beat their dog, right? You know, that's that whole thing of low-status human being. And yeah, there's low status. Yeah, there's no question. But want to know, have the opportunity to go forward and to express, because they're now part of a majority, what they feel is part of the majority, they feel that that's just the right direction, regardless if the information is right or not. They're just going to assert their authority because they now have the social gravitas or the social power to project what all these other things are happening going on. So it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Now, I'm not out to change the world with all this stuff. All I know is I can influence my family, right, my household, maybe my community a little bit, maybe bring benefit to it. I swear to God that the vast, vast majority of people that wander through our towns and communities and cities and stuff are really great people. I mean, they just are. But they're part of a entire upbringing, right? They just are. And I come back to that thing of there are things that we know, things that we think we know, and a crap load of stuff that we don't know. And my father would oftentimes say, remember from what you came. I say, okay, Dad, that's right. But and it sort of pissed him off a little bit because I'll remember from where I came, but I'm really focused and motivated about where I'm going, right? And how I'm going to go get there. And those sorts of things. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, where'd that come from? So I come back to this whole thing about how do you really piss off people these days? How do you really piss off people? I mean, really, really. And I'm not talking about vaccines and COVID and nonsense. I'm talking about just pure, straightforward ownership of life. And again, we come back to the system and how we are taught and our influence and all those sort of pieces that come along. And I oftentimes said, talk, promote, encourage people to really take back with some ambition and drive, take back ownership of their life. I mean, how many people, I don't care what age, how many people talk about it? So where do you see yourself in 4 years? What is your plan? What was the plan that they taught you and the guidance counselor taught you and all the teachers and all the people around you taught you that you could be independent and free in 4 or 5 years? They certainly didn't, because they certainly hadn't become that. And for the most part, they weren't striving to become that. Yeah, there were probably a few that were, but for the most part, they just weren't. They were just in the process of what do? I show up, I do my lesson plans, I put the pieces together, I project my great knowledge in pieces, and I present it to these young skulls full of mush, and then I move on. And then I move on to the next class and next class and next class, and 25 years later, 20 years later, whatever it is, I collect my 60% pension. And yeah, so if you talk about money, if you talk about, I'm not talking about money like go out and buy opulent houses and, multiple Lamborghinis and mega yachts and stuff. I mean, to the standpoint of, you talk about freedom of choice, of the ability to break free from a paycheck, that they are not beholden to the boss, who may or may not appreciate what they do and how they do it and what benefit they have to bring to the organization and stuff. But if there isn't a pathway, if there's not a pathway for somebody to be independent, to be free, to own their life, to be able to project their great talents, to be able to continue to develop their great interests rather than get their time and their energy sucked up by a third party sort of faceless job, then that's the problem. But you'll piss people off. And you'll piss people off, for the most part, is because the vast majority of people aren't in that group of people. They're just not in that group of people. And in the end, people would rather be part of a majority than be right, than even consider it, to look at things with just authentic curiosity, to determine if they have the ambition, if they are a little bit coachable, okay? If they just have a desire to go out and be willing to own their life. Yeah, and it comes in two forms, right? It comes in the forms of having the vigor and vitality and energy about being out there and projecting about who they are, what they do, and how it comes along and how stuff. So people oftentimes ask, why am I still doing this today? Because I see far, far, far too many people that are, again, slanting over this way. Slanting over in the direction of, I got to look for someone else to take care of me. Okay, my prosperity is tied to my boss. My prosperity is tied to my spouse. My prosperity is tied to whatever. Hey, don't ever get me off on this thing when you're going to look at 5 and 6 and 7% maybe inflation rates, and you're going to be looking at paychecks that are growing by 2%. Holy mackerel, that means your buying power decreased, right? Yeah. Oh, and we're not even going to be talking about what the taxation structure is going to be like. Increases of taxes. In other words, what you make and what you keep are two completely different things. And I know for the most part, you probably weren't even taught how to use the rules, right, of the various tax codes in order to maximize the amount of money that you can keep in your pocket. I know you weren't. That's okay. It's never too late, but you can learn that. So it's this thing. So how to piss people off? Talk about owning your life. Talk about being free from the need. Doesn't mean you don't want it, from the need of a paycheck. And a paycheck being the thing that gets delivered to either directly in your bank account or in the envelope in the old days or whatever that way. It was dependent upon you showing up someplace for 40, 50, 60 hours a week in order to collect that sort of money. Yeah, I know it all sounds, mysterious, right? Well, it's not mysterious. It's just that you weren't taught it. You just didn't know it. And I don't care how old you are. I really don't. If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, poor sons of guns that are my age, or approaching my age, maybe in late 50s and 60s, they're staring out there looking at the day that paycheck actually stops and wondering, how am I going to live another 10, 20 years and do the things that I really wanted to do, my golden years? I kept saying we're coming along, but do I really have the resources to do the things, or am I going to just get by until I die? I don't know. So talk about money. Piss people off. Get people thinking. It's not a bad way. It really isn't, because you have so much benefit you can get to people if you can open up the pathway of discussion that's beyond the discussion of the all-powerful, all-wise, all-deified political class that says only we know the right information, only we can provide you the pathway for prosperity. We know that's not true. History shows that to you over and over and over and over again. Okay, everybody, that's it. That's live from Camp Cameron. That was coming up on 14 minutes. Don't know if it made any sense, but drop a line. Let me know. All right, take care. Bye-bye.